Quang Province, Vietnam, September 1968. Hill 868 claimed 6 elite soldiers in 7 days. Only 2 returned, changed. From the depths of my collection, the War Maestro brings you a declassified nightmare that proves some horrors of Vietnam weren't made by men. September 15, 1968. A heavily redacted military report sits in my archive, its pages stained with decades of bureaucratic neglect. The document details a secret reconnaissance mission gone terribly wrong. 6 specially trained soldiers were sent to spy on enemy movements near Hill 868 in Vietnam's Quang Nam Province. The initial report was simple enough. A helicopter dropped the 6-man team deep in enemy territory. Their mission: gather intelligence on strange activity in the area. Local villages reported entire enemy camps abandoned overnight, valuable equipment left behind, and patrols from both sides vanishing without trace. The mountain people living in the region spoke of Nguy Rung, forest people, moving through the treetops at night. Military commanders dismissed these stories as superstition or enemy propaganda. Vietnam had already spawned enough ghost stories. Lieutenant James Cooper led the team, a decorated veteran with countless successful missions behind him. His final written note sends chills down my spine. 3:00 a.m. Movement spotted northeast of our position. Not enemy soldiers. Subject walks on 2 legs. Estimated height 8 to 10 feet. Team reports sounds unlike any jungle animal. Request immediate. The sentence ends in a violent slash across the page. What follows are pieces of recovered journals, interviews with the 2 survivors, and increasingly desperate radio calls for help. But it's the medical reports that truly disturb. Tissue samples with impossible DNA patterns, and evidence that something had been evolving in those hills long before Americans brought their chemical weapons to deny the enemy jungle cover. The jungle holds secrets older than war. Sometimes they hunt back. The team's radio operator, Staff Sergeant David Chen, kept a detailed journal of their mission. His precise handwriting fills page after page, each entry marked with times and locations. That same attention to detail would make his descriptions of the impossible all the more chilling. The first 3 days seemed normal. They moved by night, hidden under the thick jungle canopy, sleeping in shifts during daylight. The trees above them stood like skeletons, stripped bare by chemical defoliants sprayed to deny the enemy cover. Nature itself seemed to be dying around them. On day 4, they discovered something disturbing. Chen's entry tells the story. Found enemy camp, fires still warm, food half-eaten, personal belongings everywhere. No signs of fighting, no bodies. They just vanished. The team collected valuable enemy documents, maps and code books that could save American lives. But what they found at the camp's edge changed everything. Footprints in the mud, 3-toed, nearly twice the size of a human foot. Multiple sets, forming a perfect circle around the camp, as if something had been studying its inhabitants. Robert Hawkeye, the team's expert tracker and a Native American Green Beret, studied the prints in silence. His words sent chills through the group. Whatever made these walks like a man, but it isn't one, and it was watching them, learning their habits. That night, the sounds began. Deep, throaty calls echoed through the valley. Not human, not animal, something in between. The calls seemed to answer each other, moving closer with each exchange. Chen's journal captures their growing fear. Cooper says ignore it, says it's just monkeys. But monkeys don't plan, monkeys don't coordinate, and monkeys sure as hell don't laugh like that. A secret French military report from 1954 showed they weren't the first to face this horror. French soldiers had reported identical experiences in the same area, the same footprints, the same hunting tactics, the same terrible sounds. Their last radio message mentioned devils moving through the trees before their entire unit disappeared forever. Chen's final entry that night reads simply, "They're testing our defenses, learning our weaknesses. Heaven help us, they're learning." By the fifth night, fear began cracking the team's trained discipline. Private Michael Torres, barely 22 years old, spotted something that defied explanation. Massive shadows flowing between tree branches with impossible grace, moving at heights where no human could survive. The team's radio recorded Lieutenant Cooper's increasingly desperate calls for help. "Base, this is Cooper. Something's out there." Static cuts through his voice. "They're tracking us, following our every move." More interference. "Can see in the dark. They can see everything we..." Moonlight filtered through the poisoned leaves, creating shifting shadows that played tricks on exhausted minds. But what happened during Torres's guard duty wasn't a trick of light. Chen's journal trembled with each written word. 2:00 a.m., Torres watching northwest area. Rest of us in defensive positions. Dead calm night. First warning. Branches cracking 100 feet up. Torres sees something huge moving through the treetops. 2 legs, but massive, maybe 400 pounds, using arms and legs to swing through branches like they're nothing. 2:15 a.m. It's just watching us. Torres wants to shoot. Cooper says no. Gunfire would give away our position. Second one appears behind us. Same height. They're working together. 2:30 a.m. God help us. Torres says they're copying our hand signals, using our own communication against us. At 2:45 a.m., Torres vanished. No scream, no gunshot, no sign of struggle. Just empty space where a trained soldier had been moments before. The only evidence? Those 3-toed prints in the mud, and strange dark hair caught on tree bark nearly 100 feet above. The team's medic, Doc Harrison, examined the hair samples. His notes reveal something impossible. The hair contained both ape and human DNA. Even stranger, some strands showed recent mutations, as if something in the environment was speeding up their evolution. The French military files from '54 mentioned finding similar hair samples. They called the creatures War Apes. But that name was too simple. These weren't just animals. They were hunting with intelligence and purpose, using military tactics they'd learned from watching human soldiers. With each passing year, each new war, they'd grown smarter, more dangerous. And now they had the team surrounded. The surviving team members still argue about what happened in those pre-dawn hours of day 6. Fear and exhaustion had begun blurring reality and nightmare. But the physical evidence tells a story nothing can explain away. Sergeant Hawkeye led them toward higher ground, hoping to find a spot where their radio might work. His tracking skills painted a terrifying picture. There's 3 groups of them, 8, maybe 10 total, moving alongside us, guiding us. His voice dropped to a whisper. Like wolves, steering sheep to slaughter. The creatures herded them between the hills, leaving what seemed like safe paths that Hawkeye realized too late were carefully laid traps. But these weren't simple animal hunting tricks. They were using advanced combat tactics, blocking escape routes in ways that played upon human military training. Doc Harrison's notes reveal a chilling insight. They're not just copying what they see, they're combining techniques from different armies. French traps, Vietnamese guerrilla tactics. Something in these hills, maybe the chemicals we've been spraying, hasn't just changed their bodies. It's made them smarter, deadlier. The second disappearance came during a brief rest. Chen's shaking handwriting tells the story. Hawkeye found traps at head height, not metal wire, woven vines, natural but lethal. Then Martinez they took him straight up. No sound, just gone. Cooper ordered them to retreat, but their path had changed. Trees they'd marked to find their way back now bore new damage, deliberately placed to confuse them. The creatures had even covered the team's boot prints with their own three-toed tracks, like a mocking signature. Then the psychological warfare began. The things started returning stolen equipment piece by piece. Martinez's broken radio handset, Torres's mangled dog tags, each item placed where they'd find it, each one carrying a message. Your technology can't save you. The old French reports described similar tactics before their unit vanished. These creatures understood how to break human morale, using captured equipment to terrify their prey before the final attack. But what came next went beyond anything in those historical records. The things in the trees had learned something new from the Americans, something that would drive the remaining soldiers to the edge of sanity. A recovered recording captures the moment everything changed. Through bursts of static came the impossible, a voice mimicking perfect American military radio speech. "RT Alabama, this is base. Come in." The words were right, but the voice was wrong, like something with almost human vocal cords trying to speak. The message repeated, each time closer to perfect human speech. These creatures had learned to copy not just their movements, but their communications. The team's last defense was crumbling. Doc Harrison's final report suggests a terrifying explanation. The chemicals we use to kill the jungle, they've changed these things. Hair samples show explosive brain growth. They're not just mimicking anymore. They're understanding, adapting, creating. The constant psychological pressure began breaking the team apart. Chen's journal grows increasingly frantic. Can't trust our own radio calls now. Can't trust what we see or hear. They're using our own equipment, our own tactics against us. Cooper thinks they've been doing this for years, learning from every army that comes through. French, Vietnamese, American. We've been teaching them, training them. At dusk, they struck. 3 simultaneous attacks from different heights. A perfect military assault, but executed with inhuman strength and speed. Cooper's last recorded words tell the story. My God, they're not just copying us anymore. They're improving on everything we taught them. Hawkeye disappeared first, yanked into the canopy by something moving faster than human eyes could track. The team's night vision camera caught only a blur, a massive shape moving with terrible purpose. His final words crackle through Cooper's radio. They've been waiting, all of them, this whole damn war. They've been studying us. Doc Harrison's last notes, scribbled frantically, hint at an even darker truth. The defoliants weren't just killing plants. They were changing something that was already here. Something that's been watching us, learning from us, waiting to show us what they've become. The night dissolved into chaos. The creatures launched coordinated attacks using modified military tactics, enhanced by their incredible strength and impossible agility. They turned the jungle canopy itself into a weapon, moving in ways no human soldier could match. By midnight, only Cooper and Chen remained, backed against a cliff, watching darkness move with terrible purpose through the dying jungle above. The hunt was nearly over, and their hunters wanted them to know it. The helmet camera footage shows Cooper and Chen's final hours in horrifying detail. They'd found a shallow cave, trying to limit the directions they could be attacked from. But they were only delaying the inevitable. These creatures had an answer for every tactic, a counter for every strategy. The psychological torture intensified. The hunters began leaving pieces of their missing teammates just within reach: a bloodied boot, a torn equipment strap. Each item placed deliberately close, each rescue attempt met with near misses designed to drain their strength and hope. Chen's final journal entry reveals the horrible truth. They're not just trying to kill us, they're studying us, learning from our fear, our desperation. Every move we make teaches them something new about how humans think under pressure. We're not their prey, we're their training exercise. The night vision footage shows Cooper's last stand. A massive shape drops from above, moving like liquid shadow despite its enormous size. Cooper fires in textbook combat fashion. The creature responds with an impossible maneuver, a perfect combat roll and take-cover technique, but executed at inhuman speed. Then the radio crackles one final time. That almost human voice returns. Mission terminated. Perfect military phrasing, but layered with sounds no human throat could make. Cooper looks at Chen, understanding dawning in his eyes. Tell command. Tell them we taught them too well. Tell them what they've become. Then he charges forward, sacrificing himself to give Chen a chance to escape, a classic military tactic turned into his final act. Chen ran during the chaos. The thermal camera shows multiple heat signatures pursuing him, moving through the trees with terrifying coordination, using advanced military movement patterns, but with devastating speed and precision. The old French reports had warned about their ability to learn, but in 14 years, since those first encounters, these creatures had evolved beyond imagination. They hadn't just learned combat tactics. They'd created something new, something that combined decades of human warfare with their own inhuman abilities. As Chen fled, his helmet microphone picked up their calls, no longer simple mimicry, but a complex language mixing military commands with animalistic sounds. They were communicating, coordinating, adapting their strategy based on his every move. The hunt was reaching its climax. Chen had no ammunition left, no options remaining. Above him, the canopy came alive with movement as his pursuers prepared for the final assault. The official record lists Chen and Cooper as survivors, rescued after breaking through the radio blackout. But classified medical files reveal a darker truth about what really came back from those hills. The wounds on their bodies defied explanation. Lab tests showed their DNA was changing, mutating in ways that matched samples from the strange hair they'd collected. Their muscles grew denser, their reflexes faster. The base psychiatrist noted their behavior becoming increasingly unpredictable, showing alarming adaptation to captivity. A secret 1969 laboratory study finally revealed the horrifying truth. The chemical defoliants saturating that region hadn't just killed the jungle, they'd accelerated the evolution of something ancient. Blood samples from the creatures showed traces of primitive human DNA, twisted and enhanced through decades of exposure to modern warfare. Chen's final interview in 2012, never released to the public, hints at the full horror. We thought we were hunting them, but they've been experimenting on us since the French first arrived. Learning, adapting, all these wars, they were just practice, and now they're ready. After the Hill 868 incident, the military quietly investigated similar reports across Southeast Asia. The findings were immediately classified. These creatures had been encountered by multiple units, each time showing more advanced combat abilities. They weren't just learning warfare, they were perfecting it. Cooper vanished from military custody in 1970. The classified manhunt files describe disturbing details: superhuman strength, unprecedented tactical thinking, and the ability to move through cities like a shadow. He was last seen heading back toward the Vietnamese highlands. Satellite photos from 1975 show strange movement patterns in that region. Organized groups using advanced military formations, but moving at impossible heights through the dying jungle. The most terrifying evidence emerged in 2019. Modern DNA analysis of unidentified remains from the war revealed a pattern. Genetic markers showing a gradual mixing of human and unknown primate DNA, concentrated in areas heavy with chemical defoliants. These creatures weren't just learning from human soldiers, they were becoming something entirely new. Recent thermal imaging of Hill 868 shows regular movement in the canopy at night. The patterns match modern special forces techniques, tactics that weren't even developed until decades after the war. They're still there, still watching, still learning. Chen's final psychiatric evaluation ends with one chilling question. What happens when they decide they're done practicing? If this declassified nightmare from the War Maestro's archive haunts your dreams, take a moment to join our covert operations. Look up at the trees above you, make sure nothing's studying your movements, and subscribe to uncover more dark military truths. Hit that notification bell. You'll want to know when the next classified file breaks containment. Share this story with those who understand that some jungles hold secrets older than warfare itself. Leave a comment below. Have you ever encountered something in the field that didn't match any known species? Or perhaps you've witnessed military tactics being used by something not entirely human. Remember, some evolution never stops, and somewhere in those hills, they're still learning.